Hey y'all, I know it's been a while since I did an astrological case study. So here's the first one of 2022, La Madrina, also known as the Godmother, Griselda Blanco, drug queenpin. Now, I've been wanting to do a reading on her for years now, and I finally got around to it. So before I get into her chart, let me just read about the cocaine godmother. This is from crimemuseum.org. During the 1970s and 1980s, Miami transformed from a town of relaxed retirees to the country's cocaine capital. Fueled by Colombia's Medellin drug cartel, South Florida became the hotspot for cocaine, bringing in $20 billion per year. By 1980, an estimated 70% of all cocaine entering the United States passed through South Florida. Drug-related crimes spread throughout Miami, tripling its homicide rate. This drug-related violence became known as the Cocaine Cowboy Wars and was inspiration behind the 2006 film Cocaine Cowboys. Now, Cocaine Cowboys, they got part one and part two. If you don't know about this story, I suggest you watch those two documentaries because the way they break down the story of Griselda Blanco is really good. Forget about these made-for-TV movies about her because it's going to over-dramatize things. So go to the source, Cocaine Cowboys 1 and 2. Now, Cocaine Cowboys Part 1, you have to wait until like halfway through the documentary for them to get into Griselda Blanco. But Part 2 is basically all about Griselda and her boyfriend at the time. One of the pioneers of Colombia's cocaine trade industry was Griselda Blanco. Standing only 5 feet tall, she was a drug lord of the Medellin cartel during the 1970s and 1980s. A childhood gang member on the streets of Medellin, Blanco spent her early years as a pickpocket, kidnapper, and prostitute. When she was 20, she married her second husband, Alberto Bravo, who introduced her to the cocaine industry. She became involved in the cartel, working to push cocaine from Colombia into the United States. They targeted New York, Southern California, and Miami. In the mid-70s, Blanco and Bravo moved to New York to set up their cocaine business. At the time, New York's drug industry was controlled by the mafia. However, Blanco and Bravo soon took over a large share of the market. Authorities were on Blanco's trail during what they call Operation Banshee. They busted Blanco after intercepting a shipment of 150 kilos of cocaine. Blanco was indicted on federal drug conspiracy charges, but she fled back to Colombia before authorities could arrest her. A few years later, Blanco returned to the US, this time setting up her business in Miami. Blanco became the godmother of the cocaine industry. Her network spread across the US, bringing in $80 million a month. Blanco created many of the smuggling techniques and murdering methods that are still used today. Not only was she involved in the trade, but she played a huge role in the cocaine cowboy wars that plagued Miami. She was ruthless against rival drug traffickers and was the mastermind behind hundreds of murders. Colombian officials suspect that she was involved in at least 250 murders in their country, and US detectives believe she is responsible for 40 deaths in America. Blanco lived a comfortable, luxurious life as a millionaire in Miami. However, in 1984, after her rivals made several attempts to kill her, she relocated to California. In 1985, Blanco was arrested by DEA agents and served over a decade in federal prison on drug charges. She was then sent to Miami to face murder charges, but due to a scandal amongst the prosecution and a witness, Blanco was able to reach a deal. Blanco pleaded guilty to 3 murder charges in exchange for a 10-year sentence. In 2004, she was released from prison and deported back to Colombia. After her return to Medellin, Blanco tried to escape her past. However, in 2012, at the age of 69, she was gunned down by 2 men on motorcycles. This murder was likely related to her previous life as one of the most feared drug lords in history. All right. With that being said, let's get into her chart. So here's the chart of Griselda Blanco, cocaine godmother, La Madrina. She was also known as the Black Widow. Unfortunately, I don't have her birth time, but she might be a Scorpio rising simply because of her intimidation, the death theme, because she doesn't have any planets in Scorpio. Or she could be a Leo rising with Pluto rising. So more than likely, she's going to have one of the two, if you ask me. But I'm not really here to spend a lot of time on speculating her birth chart. Her birth time. So numerology. Griselda had a birth number of 15, and 15 produces great potential to make a lot of money. Oftentimes, these people are good at sales, good with business, and they tend to be very personable, charming, and engaging. Also, loving fashion and the arts. They said that Griselda always loved going to the mall, loved, buying expensive clothes, jewelry, perfume. Benefits through her connections and relationships. So 15s can be blessed with benefiting from people that they know, their relationships, their connections. But 15 is also prone to manipulation. So whether they are the ones doing the manipulating or they are being manipulated, and they can even resort to using black magic as a means to an end. Now, they did speak briefly in Cocaine Cowboys 1, I believe, that some of the Colombian drug runners and the Cubans too were using black magic, basically practicing, they said Santeria, but I believe it was probably more like Palo Mayombe, to basically make themselves invisible to the police and so that they could evade arrest. Her life path number was 25, that breaks down to 7. And 25 is a number of discrimination and analysis. A lot of these people are highly analytical and they're very good at making plans and good at project management. Also, that represents the drug game when you take the 7 into account. Also, themes of secrecy, deception, and her victims. Here she is right here, all laid back. And I forgot to mention this part. Let me go back. Because she's an Aquarius and she has that classic Aquarian smirk. Even Charles Cosby, her boyfriend in the 90s, he commented on that smirk that she has. So I just wanted to point that out. And here she is, just reclined back, looking very Aquarian. So her sun was conjoined to her south node in Aquarius. That made her a hardcore Aquarius. So that made her very cold and, even sociopathic. Now, I'm not saying that everybody with this conjunction is going to be a sociopath, but the potential is there. She was a big bully, extra cold, detached, and indifferent, having this sense of entitlement, like when she first met the acquaintance of her top hitman. She just walked into his house uninvited, sat herself down, was like, because his wife was cooking fish. She was like, oh, I love fish. And she basically invited herself to dinner and all types of stuff. That Aquarian smirk, again, that I spoke of, Charles Cosby, her boyfriend in the 90s, even mentioned the smirk. Karmic debt involving children, because the sun rules children. So when it's conjoined to the south node like that, usually there's going to be some karmic debt involving them. Karmic debt involving male friends and associates. So Reeve, her top hitman, he did rat her out when it was all said and done. And also just her being at war with some of her associates. She was bisexual. And, I call the Aquarius South Node, or you could even have the Aquarius North Node. That's part of the gay lunar nodal axis. So that was right in line with that. Being the leader of a network, including Pablo Escobar, who was a big drug kingpin. So he was part of the network that she was part of, or you could even say she was the head of at one time. Having a 3 musketeers approach. So all for one and one for all. And basically, as long as you were loyal to her, she would do right by you, but sometimes her loyalty was very questionable. drastic change in terms of appearance. So that's what she underwent. She ended up gaining a lot of weight. I mean, that's just natural when you get older, but just like how her face started to widen, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Seemed like the older she got, the more you could see that evil in her. Now, her Sun and South Node were opposing Chiron and her Leo North Node. And Leo is the sign of sales. So that basically says that part of her destiny was to be successful in sales. But Chiron produces the unconventional and where you could be bucking the system. So sales, but in an unconventional way. Her bucking the system. Her being the queen pin, which is representative of that Leo energy. Becoming infamous for her tyrannical measures. Children being under attack. Wounded children. So I think she lost 3 of her 4 children, all to murders. Being separated from her children. Attracting men who are disloyal in love. So she wanted to experience love, but she was also associated with these men in terms of the drug game. It was like all the men she was with, except for her first husband. And yeah, just that opposition with the Sun and South Node in Aquarius, opposing Chiron and the Leo North Node, she did attract men who were disloyal when it came to love. She had Sun square Uranus. So with this square, it can make her extremely willful, unhinged in certain respects, basically not giving a fuck of who gets hurt in the process of her trying to carry out justice, can be unreasonable when it comes to what she wants, can be very cold and heartless, can easily switch up on you. So if you, again, she feel like you doing you dirty, I mean, you're doing her dirty, she gonna quickly switch up and you'll become her adversary. Tyrannical, attracting disloyal men. So that theme resurfaces with Sun square Uranus. Being separated from her son. So at one point, when she was basically making a lot of money, she had Michael Corleone, her youngest, and her and the father of Michael Corleone, they got into a custody battle, and he ended up kidnapping her son, and she ended up getting him back, but her ex-husband, the one that had, well, I don't even know if they were married, but the father of the child, she ended up murdering his ass. And that created a war. Can easily fall out of favor with her. So here she is right here again. Again, she got that strong Aquarius look. Saturn conjunct Uranus and Gemini, trine Neptune in Libra. So this trine, or you could say trine since it's including Saturn and Uranus, was largely responsible for her success in the drug game. So success in the drug trade business, having a group of drug runners or mules, drugs being flown in, and that's where the Uranus comes in, because Uranus rules planes and pilots. Ability to operate in secret, being revolutionary in terms of the drug trade, changing the game in some respects, having some cops in her back pocket. Many connections helped her get away with shit. Also, I'm thinking that she was also involved in money laundering businesses because of these trines. So here's Griselda with her son, Michael Corleone. He's the one that got kidnapped by his father. And like I said, in this picture, you can really see the evil in this woman's face. So here's her chart again. So as you can see, the aspects that I already spoke of, there's the trine between Saturn and Uranus to Neptune. Here's the oppositions involving her Sun and South Node and Pluto, and Chiron and the North Node. And then we're also going to get into that Mercury, because that's very important. Mercury at the 0 degree of Aquarius. That's like pure Aquarian energy. And that could be quite dangerous when it is channeled into bad things. So here she is right here. This is one of her mug shots. As you can see, she has a super cleft chin. So I'm even going to get into that as well. So her Mercury was at the 0 degree of Aquarius. So this can cause her to be very intelligent, extremely intuitive, which helps with the drug game, forward thinking, progressive in terms of mindset, being absolute and resolute. So it's like once she makes up her mind, there's no going back. The mind of a dictator, tyrant, bully. Also, her Mercury in Aquarius helps her to be really good with networking and forming networks. Also, it represents her group of affiliations. Her associates doing her bidding can be cold and detached in terms of her mindset. Also, again, where it's like, I don't give a fuck. Having knowledge of flights coming in and out. So here's Griselda with her boyfriend, Charles Cosby. She was with him in the 90s when she was locked up in prison. He reached out to her because he was already in the drug game, but he was basically small time. And when he learned about Griselda, he became so fascinated with her and enamored by her just because of her mega success in the drug game. So he decided to write a letter to her, and his letter intrigued her. So she called him one day and they ended up developing a relationship, and she helped him to come up in the drug game because she would have drugs being sent to his house, cocaine. So he's featured in Cocaine Cowboys Part 2. So that's the one I like the best because the way he's a great storyteller. So the way he tells the story is really interesting, and it basically keeps you on the edge of your seat. Her Mercury was in trine with Uranus and Neptune, and she had a grand trine as a result. So that points to the drug network, drug connects, contracts, and where there's no outside interference. Because when you have a grand trine like that, it's like you can operate without any outside interference, at least for a length of time. You can operate without getting caught, without being detected. So grand trines do provide some protection from outside influences. Drug runners, pilots flying drugs in. Also, this grand trine enabled her to operate for a while undetected. Like I said, that's the power of grand trines. It also enabled her to escape. She was a fugitive. She evaded capture when she moved from New York City to Miami. So again, that grand trine helped her out in that respect. Being privileged, entitled to special treatment while in prison. Charles Cosby says she could get anything she wanted in prison. They would pay off the guards so they could have sex. Having a good lawyer on retainer, the fix that led to reduced jail time and avoidance of the death penalty. So here she is again right here. She don't look that bad right here, like in terms of her evilness, but you can still tell she cold. So her Mercury was opposed to Pluto. And with that, she had a me against them mentality. You were either with her or against her. Also, this represents her hit list and her giving orders to her enforcers, otherwise known as her hitmen, sending her goons on murdering sprees, death looming over her head. Also, someone was quoted as saying in one of the documentaries, you couldn't touch her kids. So if one of her kids came back and said that they messed with them, yeah, that was your ass. And one of her associates did get killed. She called for his murder because he disrespected one of her children. And her son came back and told on the guy. And yeah, within a week, that dude was dead. Being under surveillance. So especially in terms of her phone, She was like having phone conversations with Charles Cosby when she was behind bars. And some of what they were saying to me was pretty explicit, to the point where, yeah, it would make sense that they would use that against her in terms of evidence, but she still got off pretty lightly, again, because of the botched prosecution. But also, this is where she could be under surveillance, phones being tapped. So here's her chart again. There's that Mercury opposition Pluto that I spoke of. Mercury trine Saturn and Uranus. Mercury trine Neptune. So let me just highlight that grand trine that I spoke of. So here's Mercury trine Neptune. Neptune is in trine with Saturn and Uranus. And then we got Saturn and Uranus trine Mercury. Again, this grand trine helps her to operate for a number of years undetected, and where everything was working out in her favor for quite a while. Now here she is again. Again, as you can see, her face started to really spread out, and she's not looking as, fashionable. And of course, this is when she's behind bars, but you could just see the change. Her Venus was in Pisces, which was perfect for earning money through the drug trade. Also, that represents the lavish parties that she was throwing. Also, her having a relationship while in prison. Her Venus in Pisces was in trine with her moon and Jupiter in Cancer, having a wide reach in terms of the drug trade, drug trafficking, movies that are made about her life. So there's been a number of movies made about Griselda Blanco's life, having it easy in prison. Also, this enabled her to escape too, like her escaping back to Colombia for a few years, and also even escaping to Miami from New York, escaping to California from Miami. Her Venus was in sesqui-square with her Pluto. Now, the sesqui-square aspect can be very problematic. It can cause someone to lack restraint. It can cause someone to be buck wild in certain respects. So this caused her to be vengeful in the worst way. Basically, she wasn't going to rest until she got you. Doom, death unto my enemies. That's basically what this aspect is representing as well. Creating death and destruction. She really was an angel of death. That's another quote from that documentary. Being ruthless, being extreme over money. She was notorious for not honoring just debts. So that was another quote from the Cocaine Cowboys documentary. And basically this guy was saying that if someone owed her money and they wasn't paying, that was going to cost them their life. But there was times when she owed somebody money for a drug deal, didn't feel like paying them, and if they protested about it, she would have them killed. Being disloyal or disloyal cheating mate, my bad. She was extremely jealous. Someone else was quoted as saying, and that's very Venus sesqui-square Pluto. Also, this represents the custody battle with her son's father. The Venus in Pisces represents him being kidnapped, was plotting on JFK Jr. even when she was facing the death penalty. She wanted him to be kidnapped and held for ransom so she could be released from prison and go back to Colombia. But her top hitman talked her out of it. So yeah, but this just shows how far she was willing to go to basically ensure that she would remain free from the death penalty. Now, she could have a Thor's hammer aspect pattern in her chart. I'm saying she should, because Thor's hammer can produce somebody that creates a lot of problems for other people. And it could involve her ascendant if she is a Scorpio rising. I wouldn't be surprised if she was second degree of Scorpio, perhaps, which would create that Thor's hammer aspect pattern in her chart. Here she is again. So again, Here's the Thor's hammer if she was a Scorpio rising. And again, I'm not trying to spend too much time speculating, but just to show you what I'm talking about. So let's say her ascendant was at 2 degrees Scorpio. That will form a sesqui-square with her Pluto. Venus is sesqui-square her Pluto. I'm sorry, her ascendant would form a sesqui-square with her Venus. Venus would form a sesqui-square with her Pluto, and Pluto is squaring the ascendant, which would create a Thor's hammer aspect pattern. And that can make somebody quite ruthless, just again, creating a lot of problems and misery for other people. Her Mars was in Capricorn. And I recently did a live stream on Mars in Capricorn. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And I talked about Mars in Capricorn being very ambitious. So she was highly ambitious. Entrepreneurship, business-like approach, commanding respect from the people in the drug game. Also, she would act as the punisher and the enforcer. Or you could say those Mars and Capricorn can also represent the enforcers in her life. Can be mean, cruel. So one of the detectives was quoted as saying, so I figured that she had to be one mean lady. And the reason why he said that was because he was saying in the Latino community, they really don't put women up there like to be the head of anything. So especially something like the drug game like that. Her reputation preceded her wherever she went, which is a trait of Mars in Capricorn. So somebody was quoted as saying that in the documentary. Inciting fear in people. She liked people to fear her, and they did. And that's another quote from the documentary. Can be devilish. She even has that devilish look. And Mars does deal with the face. So Mars in Capricorn is contributing to her look as well. Can be sadistic, attracting men who are in the same line of work as her, industry, business. And also Mars in Capricorn represents the fathers of her children. So here's her Mars, 14th degree. That 14th degree can produce challenges with moving. Moving in the physical sense, but also sometimes in the mental sense. So in her case, her having challenges with moving about because she was locked up for a number of years. That's where that 14 comes in. But 14s can also experience strokes of luck, and they can end up having substantial gains, but they can also end up with substantial losses as well. 14 is a very tricky number. Her Mars was opposing her moon and Jupiter in Cancer. So that's her being called the Godmother, La Madrina, the Black Widow. Also, drug trafficking as a part of her business. The trafficking part is represented by Jupiter. Getting out of Dodge, fleeing to LA, trips to Colombia, being extradited to Colombia when released from prison. Shooting up a family household. Getting flack for dating a Black man. Her face widened to a moon shape, widening of her jawline. So you'll have people with Mars and Capricorn, they have a distinct jawline, which she did. But it started to widen, her face started to really widen. That points to the moon and Jupiter and Cancer's influence. Trying to balance religion with her devilish ways. So when she was caught by the police, she was found in bed reading her Bible by a detective. Being severely wounded in the stomach by her second husband, Alberto Bravo, when they had a shootout. So here she is right here. Again, you can really see that devilishness in her face in this picture. I mean, she looks totally evil in this picture, but she still got that Aquarius smirk. Her Mars was forming a sesqui-square with Uranus. So this is another aspect that made her extremely ruthless. So that caused her to be indiscriminate in terms of her actions, killing, shooting into a group of people mass killings, massacres, cars, shopping malls. Like, she was the type that was like, would be like, spray the whole store just to get at one or two people, or spray the whole parking lot. Lacking restraint, going to extremes, being sociopathic in terms of her actions, ruthless, being disloyal, will turn on friends, being a loose cannon, being perverse in some way, shape, or form, questionable character, super cleft chin. So this is the aspect that produced that super cleft chin, because Uranus is in Gemini. It's at the 0 degree of Gemini, mind you. And Gemini can deal with things that are split. So a cleft chin is basically when the jawline at the chin is not fused together. And that is hereditary in a lot of cases. So you can really see that super cleft chin here. And like I said, in this picture, you could tell her face has widened out and almost where her chin looks deformed, like she got some type of injury here, but she was born with that cleft chin. And then just as her face started to widen out, it started to look much more unattractive. So here are some of her asteroids and fixed stars. So her Uranus was conjoined to the asteroid Diana, and that points to her being hunted down by a group. And Uranus being in Gemini, Diana being in Gemini, that points to the guys on the motorcycle that shot her down. Her North Node was running parallel to the asteroid Eros, and Eros was at the 14th degree of Aries. So that's representing her being at war with her husband, Alberto Bravo, but also where she shot up or had Charles Carr shot up when she found out he was cheating. Mercury parallel and Saturn contra-parallel Hera. So Hera is an asteroid that can point to vengefulness. So this aspect points to her acts of vengeance and being extremely jealous. Pluto was opposed to the asteroid Icarus, and this points to her undercover operations via planes, and where one of the planes did, I think it was either blown up or it crashed. But yeah, there was some disaster involving one of the planes. Venus opposition Isis, drug money being scattered, different drug rings. Moon opposition Niobe. Now, Niobe is an asteroid that can produce tragedy involving children. It can often pertain to the death of a child, death of children in her case. And this also represents the custody battle between her and the father of Michael Corleone. Mars opposition Proserpina. So this is representing violence and abuse resulting in Griselda leaving home. So she was in an abusive home. Her mom used to abuse her, and she ended up running away from home in the middle of the night. And Proserpina does deal with either runaways or leaving home, but it can also deal with kidnapping as well. So this opposition also points to the father of Michael Corleone, her youngest son, and how he kidnapped him. Mercury was conjoined to the fixed star Sham, and Sham can make one combative, opinionated, jealous, and it brings the danger of death in battle, which she definitely experienced. Mercury conjunct Tarazed, spoil and plunder, imagination, strong passions, will, clairvoyance, fame, and having a powerful mind. Her Mercury was conjoined to Altair. Altair can produce impulsiveness, courage, accidents, strong passions, and indomitable will. It can produce a dominating character, clairvoyance, and a penetrating mind. Her Mars was conjoined to Vega. Vega can manifest as fleeting fame, double dealing, generosity, and practicality. Her Mars was also conjoined to Manubrium. Manubrium can manifest as blindness, explosions, fire, heat, heroism, courage, defiance, intellect, and also military strategy. Her Pluto was conjoined to Persephone. Persephone can produce reclusive tendencies, blindness, murder, tragedy, fires. It pertains to homosexuality. It can manifest as a violent death, which she had, And also it can make one fortunate in business, but where the person is liable to loss and disgrace. Chiron was running parallel to the fixed star Bellatrix, and Bellatrix can produce accidents and sudden dishonor. Chiron was also conjoined to Adhafera, and this star can manifest as crime, lying, stealing, and suicide. Now, one of the guys that she targeted for murder ended up killing himself once he found out that Griselda was after him. South Node parallel Kambalia. Kambalia pertains to deep research of any kind, police investigations, espionage, a secret life, but also a spiritual life. Now let's get into Griselda Blanco's favorite hitman, Jorge Ayala. Now he's featured in part 1 and part 2. He's more featured in part 2. And wait a minute, or is it? No, he's more featured in part 1, I believe, towards the end of the documentary. But he basically tells the story from his perspective of Griselda and how she would send him out on these assassin missions. So here's his chart. I don't have his birth time, but you can still glean a lot of information just by looking at the signs and the aspects. So recipe of a hitman. He had Mars conjunct Venus and Uranus in Leo. So Mars conjunct Uranus in particular, because Mars was conjoined to Uranus 3 degrees away, but also Venus as well. But Uranus was closer to Mars. That points to his love of machine guns. He said his favorite gun was the Mach 11, and also his dealings with automatic weapons. I see this man as being narcissistic and sociopathic, especially when you just see him in action telling his story. Being part of mass shootings, having a lot of hard courage, being very loyal. He was very loyal to Griselda, except at the end when he was on the hot seat. He was a big time player. He basically bragged about having a wife and 2 girlfriends. He loved to flex and brag. Even the attorney said that he really didn't like Reeve because Reeve would come into his office with big guns and lay them right on the desk, and he would try to talk about some of the killings, and the lawyer didn't want to hear it. Mars, Uranus, and Venus being in trine with Saturn and Sagittarius. This made him the top enforcer. Also, he got lucky a number of times. He even said that he was lucky because there was times where he thought he was going to get killed, but he ended up getting out of it unscathed. Trafficking weapons, having a lot of connections. He got some of his friends from Chicago involved in some of the killings as well. Operating as a free agent. There was times where he would even deny Griselda's request for certain hits. And he'd be like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But then he'd be like, but I got a friend that would. His North Node was at the 16th degree of Scorpio. So that's him being a hitman in the drug game. So that 16th degree represents the drugs. Being a hitman is represented by Scorpio, and him performing sneak attacks. Also, he was very much into explosives. His Sun and Mercury in Cancer was in trine with his North Node. And that's him learning about bombs and explosives. Griselda hiring him, which is represented by the Sun and Mercury in Cancer. Cancer rules women. Colombian bond that they share. Cancer rules race, ethnicity, nationality. A persistent and tenacious killer. So Cancer is very persistent and tenacious, and he was that type of killer. North Node square Chiron in Aquarius. So with this showed how he betrayed his friend, and also his friend getting murked when Griselda put the hit out on him. And he even murked his friend's wife, one of his other friend's wife, because she threatened to go to the police because, her husband got locked up. And because Griselda wasn't getting him out in enough time, she threatened to go to the police. And Griselda was like, that bitch gotta die. And then next thing you know, Reeve's putting a bullet in her head. And that was his friend's wife. And he betrayed Griselda, who he considered to be a friend at one point. So that just points to that. His Sun and Mercury in Cancer were forming a quincunx with his Chiron in Aquarius. He can turn his feelings off and on. So that points to that quincunx right there. With that Chiron being in Aquarius, that shows that he could turn really cold and indifferent at times. But then he had this great love for his family at the same time. He wanted to be a good provider. Can turn cold, indifferent, become detached, and sociopathic. Can disassociate at will. Moon conjunct Neptune in Libra, sextile Pluto in Leo. This is him being a hitman for a drug queen pin. Griselda paid for his daughter's surgery as a result of his dedication to her. So again, Griselda did have that Three Musketeers approach, and that's very Aquarian. So she would do things for, people that was loyal to her. Good at ambushing and operating in stealth. The ambushing part is the Libra. Him operating in stealth is that Pluto, but also the Neptune influence. Can enter a trance-like state, i.e. blacking out, which makes it easier to kill. So that's what I figured what's going on with Reeve, because when you just see him, he doesn't seem like he's the type that would be this madman, maniac type of killer. He's real cool and laid back with it. So that moon conjoined to Neptune can manifest as being in a trance-like state. Remember, Will Smith got moon conjoined to Neptune too. So I see where when it was time for him to do the killings, he would just go into this trance-like state, become fully immersed into that life, basically black out, and where he's still being conscious though, if you get what I'm saying. But he could totally just undergo this metamorphosis where he turns into this cold-blooded killer. He was probably hustling in prison. I don't know if he's out of prison at this point. Somebody could let me know if you've been keeping up to date on this story. Also, this made him it made it easy for him to attract women, made it easy for him to seduce women. He had sexual relations with a female attorney. He had phone sex with a legal secretary. This helped Griselda avoid the death penalty. So he was a big factor in the botched prosecution procedures. So here's Jorge Reeve Ayala right here. And as you can see, he got that smug look on his face. He got the look of kind of like somebody that would be a narcissist, if you ask me. But yeah, you could check him in action in both of those documentaries. So here's the synastry, or some of the synastry aspects between Griselda Blanco and Reeve. So Reeve's Venus, Mars, and Uranus were conjoined to Griselda's Pluto and Leo. That made him extremely loyal to her. Reeve lived the high life through Griselda's murderous ways. Also, I'm thinking they could have had a sexual relationship at some point, probably early on, but they probably decided that they really weren't compatible. Reeve's moon and Neptune trine Griselda's sun and south node in Aquarius. A friendship develops in the course of Reeve's displays of dedication to Griselda. It was easy to get Reeve to acquiesce to her will. Reeve was in awe of Griselda. Isn't that funny, her name Griselda, like Grizzly? Reeve's moon and Neptune sextile Griselda's Chiron and Leo North Node. So that's Reeve's dedication to Griselda. Reeve's Pluto conjoined to Griselda's Chiron and Leo North Node. That points to Reeve's killings, helping Griselda to remain on top. Also, this could be another indication of them being sexually active with each other at least once. And this also is representative of the kid that got killed by mistake when Reeve and her other henchmen opened fire on a car trying to hit their target, and their target's son was in the back seat and ended up getting murdered instead. Reeve Scorpio North Node trine Griselda's Venus, Moon, and Jupiter. basically him being a hitman for her drug operation, making her feel protected. Reeve's Scorpio North Node sextile Griselda's Mars. Griselda benefiting from Reeve's ability to kill. She facilitated his destiny to be a killer and experience scenes of death and to basically be a criminal, which is all part of that Scorpio North Node. Reeve's Sun and Mercury conjoined to Griselda's Moon and Jupiter in Cancer. That shows that they have very close ties. It also represents the Colombian connection, displays of unconditional love and acceptance, and he was the only one out of the enforcers who knew where she lived. Now, Reeve's Saturn was in trine with Griselda's Pluto. This points to Reeve's need for travel, adventure, and freedom being stated through Griselda's criminal activities. His need to exact vigilante justice, which is represented by Saturn in Sagittarius, was sated through Griselda's need for retribution via death. Reeve's Saturn in Sagittarius was opposing Griselda's Saturn in Gemini. So Reeve's morals and ethics, represented by Sagittarius, versus Griselda's devil-may-care approach and her rationalizations. So when that kid ended up getting killed, she basically shrugged it off and was just like, hey, it is what it is. And at least I hurt him by hurting his child. But Reeve, he didn't like that shit. And that, kind of tore him up inside. Reeve's Taurus South Node sextile Griselda's Venus. Reeve making money through her drug money, benefiting from her charitable ways. Money was really no object for her. So whenever he would deny her request, she would just up the ante and be like, well, look, first she would be like, I'll pay you $50,000 to kill this dude. And if he didn't think it was right or he thought it was too risky, he'd be like, nah, I'm not going to do it. And then she'd be like, well, shoot, I'll pay you $100,000. Reeve's Taurus South Node trine Griselda's Mars. That's Reeve making money through her business. Reeve's Chiron in Aquarius quincunx Griselda's Jupiter in Cancer. This represents the times when Reeve separated from her, going back to Chicago, and his protest to some of her imaginings, which included that JFK kidnapping plot. Reeve's Chiron in Aquarius, Sesame Square, Neptune, and Libra. Reeve feeling trapped at times, trapped in terms of his loyalty to Griselda. And she was the type that would always find out where he was living. So if she needed him, she knew how to track him down. Also, he lost a friend to her, represented by his Chiron in Aquarius. Reeve's Mercury and Sun in Cancer opposing Griselda's Mars in Capricorn. She was always able to find him, like I said. And this points to his self-preservation versus her business. So there was times, like I said, that he denied her requests for certain killings because he was more thinking about his own self-preservation versus her, as opposed to her business. So that concludes my astrological case study on Griselda Blanco. But before I let you go, I did want you to take a look at some of the letters that she wrote to Charles Cosby. Again, here's Charles Cosby. He ended up dating her when she was in prison. He saw a news story about Griselda, and because he was already in the drug game, he became enamored with her. He basically was so fascinated with her that, this woman could be at the top of the drug game like she was, and how she was able to make millions upon millions of dollars. So again, he reached out to her. She liked what he wrote. She contacted him, and next thing you know, they have this in-prison romance, and she helped him to come up in the drug game. So let me pull up these letters that she wrote to him just to show you more inside the mind of Griselda Blanco. Just 1 second. Let me pull it up. So I went through a lot of these letters, and most of these letters, they're not really detailed in terms of what's been going on with Griselda while she's in prison. It's more of all this, I love you, baby, I love you, all this type of stuff. So for instance, like this, hi, baby, I received your letter. Yes, baby. For me, is the same over the past 10 months. In 23 days, my love for you has grown too much. Your love is so important to me. And I feel so happy because I know you love me in the same way I love you. So, I mean, all of these letters, she just keeps on talking about how much she loves him, how she's thankful that he's in her kid's life because he basically took her, two of her sons under his wing and like looked out for them while she was in prison. But because she has those oppositions between her Aquarius energy and her Leo energy, it's like she doesn't know how to really express herself in terms of like a bona fide way. Like it just seems like all of this is put on, like she thinks this is what she's supposed to say to gain his loyalty. And as soon as she found out he was cheating, though, she sent her goons after him to try to assassinate him. Now, when he questioned her about it, she was like, oh, I was just warning you. It was just a warning. I didn't mean to really kill you, try to kill you and all that. But as you can see, it's just all this, I love you, my life and you. She has a hard time speaking, like writing in clear English. Let me see. Baby, you tell me I'm very jealous, but it's because I love you. Like these letters are indicative of her Mercury at the 0 degree of Aquarius opposing her Pluto and Leo. And with her being a Leo North Node, she really wasn't familiar with romantic love in this lifetime. And it could cause her to fabricate those feelings of love. I feel like these letters are representing the love that she was basically experiencing on her own, but through Charles Cosby. She definitely, I don't believe she even, loved him, which can explain why she sent her goons after him. Let me see. The reason I don't want nobody love or son, nobody kiss you. I don't want to think about because yes, I'm so jealous. And when something is mine, it's for me only. I will always remember that I was your friend before I became your wife. So she was even trying to play the role of his wife. But all of this is basically a sign of narcissistic personality disorder. She's love bombing him in order to gain his loyalty, in order to have his absolute support. Hi, baby. Thanks for your beautiful letter, baby. I want to tell you that for me, was so nice to be with you. I'm feeling more in love with you, baby. You know that I want to tell you that I will never leave you. You are so special. Now, usually once you've been involved with someone, even if you're in prison, I would think that she would be sharing more so details about what's going on in the prison and like things going on a day-to-day basis, but it's all just this love bombing. I want to tell you thanks to be in this way with Michael. That's her youngest son. You know that I love my son, and yes, I never trust in people. I'm sending to you some pictures from my friends, but I need you to return them to me. But again, baby, I love you. And yes, something too much visiting with me. Oh, and enjoy too much visiting with me. Again, her English was rather broken. For me, it was a beautiful day and I want to have many days with you. Okay, baby, I love you. All this, I love you, I love you, I love you. Again, it's just lip service. I don't believe she really meant it, being the narcissist that she was. So she sent quite a few letters to him. Here's this weird looking letter. Hi, baby. You don't worry for I guess she's saying the law in life, things happen because they have. Baby, I'm sending you this picture. I hope you enjoy them. That Cancer energy is why she's all talking about baby this, baby that, because I'm missing you too much and I love you too much. Baby, I wish to be with you one day, but you are sure that you love me. What happened if you are wrong about your feelings? Let me see. I don't want to think that, but only God knows what will happen in the future. The only thing I tell you is that nobody in my life changed my life in the way you are doing. You are very important to me today and always. Remember, I'm yours like your wife. I love you forever, Griselda. Too much kisses for you. So I guess she means many kisses for you. This one's kind of hard to read. but it's basically more of the same stuff. Hi, Charles. This letter is to tell you that it's time. Everything you said about me, respect that. I've been here for many years, and it's true. The prison make me feel so bad. I feel tired from this something area. My life or my hope is stay in my home with my son. So she wanted him to stay in her home with her sons. I want to pay you, or is saying, I want to say you thanks for your friendship. Thanks for all the things that you were making for my baby. And yes, for me, you are a special person because you always stay by my side for me. The money is not important. All I want is to stay in my home with my boy. Want you to stay in my home with my boys. So also you could say she was using him, but he was using her too. There was no love on his side either. He basically was fascinated with her, and he basically used her as a come up. All this, I love you, I love you, I love you. Nothing wrong with, sending messages of love, but as you can see, there's nothing really where she's just saying, hey, babe, guess what happened today? Yeah, I got into it with this female and blah, 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 blah. And I had to let her know. But yeah, baby, in this life, there are too many important things, but you are so important to me. You are my little baby, and I love you so much. I think the life is strange because I never thought to find love here, and I met you. I love you forever. But yeah, I just wanted to show y'all some of those letters. And again, it's just a testament of her being disconnected from true love, and also her being very narcissistic. And again, those letters are very much indicative of her Mercury opposition Pluto. So I just wanted to add that in there. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments section. I'll be back with some more astrological case studies, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to be trying to post them more frequently. And one that I have coming up is one I've been wanting to do for years too, and I just never got around to doing it. So stay tuned. Please like and share. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if you would like a reading, you could go to my website. The link is listed in the description section. Peace.